Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. It's a long title, but basically, we're going to be talking about verticalized communication solutions, why this matters, why now, and how you can use verticalized communications to improve your organization's performance. Now, once again, my name is Elka Popova. I oversee the connected work research at Frost & Sullivan. And for today's webinar, I'm joined by a panel of industry experts. They're here to share their perspectives with you and some real life examples from how they have used vertical or verticalized communication solutions to deliver tangible business outcomes to organizations in different industries. Now, I'm happy to introduce to you in alphabetical order Malachi Threadgill from GoTo. Malachi, say hello so the audience can see who you are. Michael Brandenburg from Ring Central. Mike.
Hi. Hey.
Randy Maestri from Zoom.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Randy. And Stuart Donner from Wildix.
Hey,
Hi,
everyone.
Stu. Well, before we launch into a discussion, I wanted to set the stage with a couple of insights and data points from my own research. So the usual caveats here. I hope you can see my screen. Please, panelists, nod if you can see my slides. Good. Why are we talking about verticalized communications today? And why does it matter? All right. I and my co-panelists, we strongly believe that communication solutions need to be tailored for verticals and even sub-verticals, workflows, and job roles to deliver meaningful outcomes, boost productivity, improve user experiences, drive actual organizational transformation, and provide the organization with a competitive edge. They must also be integrated with workflows and vertical specific software and services so that users can actually access communications from the interfaces in portals where they live on a daily basis, where they perform their work tasks. Now, the reality, though, is that traditionally communications have been horizontal. They have been generic, kind of a utility shared by everybody within the organization with little or no possibility to tailor them or customize them for different user needs or requirements. Now that's changing, and we're seeing a shift from these generic solutions to purpose-built communications. And organizations today expect their solutions to be designed for their specific needs, for the realities of their industries, the specific pain points and challenges that they're experiencing, and to address actual user requirements. This is the only way they see communication solutions actually delivering the productivity or efficiency benefits that they expect. Communications modernization projects today are also expected to align with companies' compliance requirements. Depending on the industry and the geography where companies operate, they expect their communication solutions to align with these requirements so they can avoid penalties and function without disruption. Furthermore, as companies think about communications as more of a strategic investment, as a way to actually deliver higher level benefits, They're looking to automate specific workflows, mission critical tasks. And for that, once again, communications need to align with the way people work in a specific industry. Both the organization, the end user organization, and the provider need to collaborate to identify the technologies and solutions that automate tasks for that specific industry. Another strategic imperative today is the ability to empower frontline workers. Let me go back to the reality that communications have traditionally been very horizontal, and they were also designed with the knowledge worker or desk-based workers in mind. People like me who sit at the desk and stare at screens all day, large screens for that matter, and use a number of different devices easily available to them to access communications tools. The reality is that frontline workers or desk-less workers actually account for a larger proportion of the workforce. And it's very important to provide them with the tools that match their environments, that fit their environments and match their specific needs. Many of them are campus roamers. Others are working in the field, and for that they need mobility, they need integration with different systems, they want hands-free access, and so on. Of course, in the meantime, organizations are also looking to enhance the capabilities for their knowledge workers, so we're not leaving that demographic behind. So with all these objectives, once again, companies now select their providers differently and their solutions differently. They're also looking to integrate communication solutions into workflows so that users can access communication tools exactly where, their workday happens. And why is this possible today? Well, it's finally possible because technological advancements have enabled these new levels of customization and personalization. For the past 20 years or so, cloud communications platforms have enabled organizations to more flexibly deliver capabilities to users independent of their geographic location, devices, networks, and so on. But it's only with AI today that we can reach these unprecedented levels of customization and personalization and automation. Flexible APIs, they've been around for a while, and organizations are increasingly using them to embed communications into workflows. Mobility and other technological advancements are also contributing to this new world where providers can enable deeper integrations and automation and deliver these role-specific experiences, and customers are looking at communications once again as a strategic, outcome-driven investment, not just an infrastructure-led decision. Very quickly, a couple of data points that kind of provide evidence of an existing pain point and a problem and shifting buyer behaviors. In an IT and telecom decision maker survey from last year, over 60% of our respondents indicated that their organizations lack appropriate tools for key job functions, and they perceive that as a hurdle to effective communications within the organization. Also, their IT staff reported to us that they're struggling to tailor communications to specific workflows using legacy systems. So there is a pain point, there is a productivity gap, and organizations are looking to upgrade, modernize, and in the process, tailor solutions for their specific requirements. To achieve this goal, 50% of organizations tell us that they're prioritizing providers with deep industry expertise. So now vertical knowledge is an important selection criterion along with price and features, reliability, security, and all these other factors. So I'll just wrap up here with a quick emphasis on where the opportunity is. Technological advancements, AI mobility, programmable communications, cloud services are redefining workflows. They're streamlining, improving workflows, and enabling broader and deeper transformation within customer organizations. It's that domain specific automation now that can deliver measurable outcomes beyond the specific technology specific benefits of the legacy communication solutions of yesteryear. So now I am going to involve my panel to share their perspectives and see if they agree with the points I made and whether they have some different insights to share with you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start again with very brief introductions, but more specifically, I would like to invite my co-panelists to tell us why and how they decided to focus on vertical communications. I'm going to again go in the order in which I introduced my panelists. So, Malachi, can I start with you? Can you tell us how you kind of decided that vertical communications are the way to go today?
Yeah, thank you. And I think you covered everything really well. Sorry, I just cut off for a second. I think you laid the foundation incredibly well. I think when we look at our heritage at GoTo and where we started, back in the Jive days, there was a big focus on education. So there's just a natural swell of education type of customers. And so as we evolved, we were able to look at that and build out features and capabilities that serve that segment. Secondarily to that, the GM of our business also came from an automotive background. And so we also had a swell of automotive customers. And so we went to them and we asked them what they wanted. And then we were able to build out those features and capabilities specific for them, for those use cases that they were able to transform their business and their frontline workers. And then ultimately going into healthcare, which I know we'll be talking about more. But when we looked at kind of the centers of gravity within our organization, and then we went and asked them what they wanted, and we could build out features for those, we're able to increase our win rates. We're able to increase our retention rates. The experience got better for all of them. And so the vertical strategy really played well with those specific features that we were able to build out, the specific CRM integrations, et cetera.
I see. So you drew from experience, from existing strengths and capabilities, and kind of further develop those to provide more value. So,
Yeah,
Mike,
absolutely.
thank you. Mike, how did you get involved in vertical communications?
Me or Ring Central? No,
Both.
no. I just I'll introduce myself first. I'm Mike Brandenburg, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Ring Central. My focus, since I've been here, has been on uh, platform and vertical solutions. So this call has been near and dear to my heart. Ring Central has always had uh, a vertical strategy. It's been kind of a key to winning in large enterprises that have the resources and the APIs and all the integrations to build those workflows. I think what's changed for us is we've kind of fine-tuned it to uh, enable and serve all of our customers better and become vertically focused. So and tap into those workflows. That's so it's not we're suddenly discovering it. It's we're bringing it, available to all our customers.
Great. Makes sense, but we'll talk in a bit about why it's more possible today than it was,
Yes.
a decade ago. Randy, I'm going to go over to you. How did you get how did you become involved in verticals?
Right. By the way, thanks, Elka, for having me today. Hello again, everyone. As mentioned at the beginning, my name is Randy Maestre, and I lead here at Zoom industry, developer, as well as partnership product marketing. And in case you want to know why my role and my title is so long, it actually applies directly to some of the points that you mentioned earlier, Elka. Because when you're talking about vertical solutions, it's not about that single all-in-one generic horizontal solution. You actually need industry knowledge. You need developer tools such as APIs, et cetera. And you also need partners, hardware as well as software, to make this vertical solution comprehensive and whole. So that's why I have a number of areas falling under my remit. But in terms of why Zoom is in verticals and focused on verticals, we have always had a vertical strategy here at Zoom since day one. Stanford University was actually Zoom's very first customer. I don't know if many of you knew that. So as with Malachi, we actually have a huge focus on education. And since our first customer, we've always seen value in creating offerings that are relevant to a customer's industry-specific needs, as well as use cases. So this can be in education, but also in government, healthcare, financial services, or other industries. And by the way, I chose this virtual background because, not just because of all the Artemis 2 hype, but also, wouldn't it be cool if aerospace were the next focus vertical? I actually have a degree in aerospace engineering, so I personally think that would be really cool.
Wow, you'll get some people excited about that, Randy, I'm sure. We'll have the next perspectives on the moon, I think. So, over to you, Stu. How did you become involved in verticals? Why is Wildix interested in providing vertical solutions?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And it's a pleasure to be here and part of the panel. So Wildix and verticalization, I guess verticalization in the industry generally, from a Wildix standpoint, we've moved, the market shifted from, features, leaning heavily on features and functionality. And we've got to this point now where it's super exciting. I genuinely every day is like Christmas from a technology point of view right now. AI's come of age. We've got all of the great and the goods that we've had for a long time, and now we've got this AI layer. I think we can all talk about AI. It'll come up a lot today, I'm sure, and that's enabling us to do other things. So from our point of view, verticalization is really a shift from features to workflows for the customer, for the end user. And when we're talking about repeating workflows, common things, common queries within certain industries, certain pain points that can be resolved easily. So it's that repeatability. That really changes the conversation. It makes it easy for the end customer to really see the value, the outcomes of those workflows that we are verticalizing into. And it also gives us an opportunity to talk a really common language. So, we're talking about industry-specific language, industry-specific workflows, industry-specific integrations. And it takes something that can be, everyone on this panel, I think we probably might all suffer from the same thing, which is moving comms or putting new comms in is quite a big deal. We talk about it all day long, every day, and it's a frequently done thing for us. But for the end customer, it might be something that they do once or twice in their careers. It's quite a big deal to move to do a platform move. So when we can talk in that common language, when we can talk confidently about the problems that we solve, it just helps people to focus on the outcomes in a way that's very easy for them to understand. So it doesn't feel like they need to go back to school to learn a whole new set of languages and skills and interfaces. It's easy to absorb, easy to use, and it builds that trust through the sales cycle.
Great points, and kind of a good segue into my next question. So, several of you made a point that your organizations have always had kind of a vertical focus. And that makes sense. I mean, usually a communications provider would identify a few verticals where they have strengths and where they can deliver more value. And there's always that conversation where, you kind of have to understand what the company is trying to achieve to be able to provide the right solution. But as you pointed out, Well, for some individuals in IT or telecom, you know, within the customer organization, this may be their first or only communications modernization project in their entire career. So it's important to I think it's important to highlight why today we as an industry are in a better position to provide more tailored solutions. Even if verticalization itself has been a trend that's been going on for a while, I strongly believe that technological advancements are making it more possible, more scalable, more more economical. So what are those tipping points? Let's educate the decision makers. Let's also kind of educate each other why today it's a bigger deal or more possible than it used to be. And we don't have to go in the same order. Is there anybody who kind of wants to get us started on this particular topic? Mike, you
You know,
unmuted yourself.
yeah, I could jump into this. I think the difference is, and I kind of alluded to that in my intro, that when you're dealing with legacy platforms and closed systems, that kind of digital transformation was only available to the large enterprise that had a stack of developers and professional services and consultants that would come in and digitally transform and make those connections. Today, what's changed is, between our open platforms, cloud services, a better internet access and mobile devices, kind of the technology has come down that everybody can digitally transform today. It's a clear issue of accessibility. And that's really what's driving the change. Basically, we're enabling that mid-sized business to, look and feel and operate like a large enterprise as well. So we're taking that competitive advantage that the large enterprise have and bringing it down market. I think is the biggest shift.
So the point here is, I guess, that we have more cost-effective ways of delivering that customization than we did in the past, and we can bring it down market.
And cost effective and open, and having access to APIs as well as low code, no code solutions that somebody can drag and drop
Great
a workflow
points.
and incorporate or integrate communications into the workflows. I think it's
Great
the
point.
biggest.
Sue, looks like you want to go next.
Well, I'm just going to follow on from Michael there, but I think he's absolutely right. There's a huge democratization of technology that's happening, partly driven by AI, partly driven by infrastructure, and I think it's maybe absolutely right. Enterprise has been doing it; they've got their own developers. Yes, we've seen that a lot, but also it's about driving it into within an organization. So there's a democratization for not and Elka, to your point at the start, right? So it's also about for us, the deskless worker. So it's about the modality of interfacing as much as it is about the broad spread. So taking UCAS, and taking these verticalized use cases, but maybe. I mean, we've got one here, but like using it for the deskless worker. So for people like shop floor workers or warehouse operatives, they're not at a desk, they don't have a laptop in front of them, but how do we communicate to them, and how can we serve information at an appropriate time and appropriate place in an appropriate channel? That's a big driver for us to verticalize too. So democratizing across different industries, so the verticalization, but also even deeper into businesses potentially where we already are, but to people in different ways so they can experience it. And ultimately communication, the more joined up we can be. So if we can have from every layer, every type of worker using the same system, we get better outcomes for the customers.
Great. So Randy, what would you add?
I think there are two angles to this, right? There's the customer angle, and from a customer standpoint, IT teams realize that there are a whole set of vertical and operational use cases that are not horizontal, right? They're realizing by talking now to their internal departmental partners that they need to help support solutions for those operational specific vertical use cases. So I think there's a realization from the customer, but vendors too. And as Michael mentioned earlier, the vendors are actually key to making this more adaptable and open to customers, right? Through APIs, et cetera. In fact, I was reading an article recently that said vertical industry specific software platforms are growing nearly twice as fast as horizontal generic tools. So, as we talked about earlier, Elka, one size fit all products just aren't enough, right? And to really win in verticals, and many vendors are finally seeing this now, you need to understand the industry. It's about the pain points. It's about the integrations that leverage APIs, regulatory requirements. Stuart mentioned industry terminology and vernacular, and there's a lot more. And I think this realization by customers as well as by vendors is really what's driving this need for verticalization. So it's a two-prong approach.
It's a two-prong, driving force, so to say. Okay, I think this is just a great kind of overview of the different factors. Malachi, what would you add to this discussion?
Yeah, I have three quick comments. I think that one is, we've been in this industry a long time, and we've been talking about the death of the, PSTN forever. So just the reality is, when you look at the core capabilities that exist across our companies that aren't here today, there is a lot of commonality. And so the differentiation as you reach maturity in an industry is that specialization. And how do we create those specialized outcomes for our customer base? Then you add in the omni-channel capabilities that Stuart alluded to. It's more than just dial tone. It is all of the capabilities, WhatsApp internationally, SMS, et cetera. And we have to start to build out these use cases for these specific verticals. And then finally, I think Randy really alluded to it well, is that traditionally, historically, all of this was sold through the IT department, but the reality is that the buying group and the participants and how we can leverage these tools, both in the back office and the front office, has changed. And we can't be perfect for every single outcome. And so we do have to be precise, we do have to focus, and we do have to build out those capabilities where our product set actually helps those specific verticals versus just a broad horizontal approach.
How did we get through this whole conversation around the driving forces for verticalization without talking about AI? I really just don't know what we did, but there wasn't a single statement about how AI is making it way more possible today than in the past. Can I just kind of challenge you to give me one sentence? I don't know if that's fair. Okay, a very brief statement about how AI is enabling verticalization today.
I'll start. I'm gonna pick on our AI receptionist. In the past, we're all familiar with the phone trees of an IVR of press 1 for sales, press 2 for service, and those are static. Every time you call, there's some admin that's programming those and changing those for the holidays and things like that. I guess one of the great uses that I've seen RingCentral do is our AI receptionist. It learns the business. It knows your hours. It knows you basically feed it the intelligence about your business, and it becomes personalized. It's not even. It goes beyond verticalization. I think it becomes personalized for your business, and understands the departments, and from there can handle call routing, and it also knows what it doesn't know, and deflects to a human when it can't answer a customer's question. So I think it's AI as an enabler to not only verticalize but personalize the platform for a particular customer's business is really compelling. And like I said, taking I think even farther past, kind of verticalization into, speaking the language of that business and the language of the customers.
Good example.
Yeah, Elka,
Randy?
I'll give you an example in healthcare. And I'm going to give you your quote or your one short statement that you want, but I'm also going to give an example because I think you need to understand the pain points and then how AI is helping to resolve those pain points. So I'm going to give you an example as well. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but AI adoption in healthcare has actually surged. It was about 3% in organizations in 2023, just 3 years ago. And now it's up to 22%. So 22% of all organizations in healthcare are actually using AI today. And this, by the way, represents over 2 times faster deployment of AI compared to other industries. Okay, so that's your one statement. But let's take a look at an example. And for this, I want to look at an AI workflow and specifically AI generated clinical notes. A lot of companies out there are touting AI generated clinical notes. Why is this suddenly becoming embraced by a lot of healthcare organizations? Because of the following. So did you know that physicians today spend twice the amount of time on paperwork versus on patients? And this equates to, in some cases, over 15 hours a week on administration-related tasks, right? And this leads to burnout, staffing shortages, other types of issues. AI-generated clinical notes automate this entire workflow and has, in some cases, reduced documentation burden by up to 70%, right? So this allows physicians to focus on what matters most, right? Patients, not paperwork. So great example of the power of technology, in this case, AI, and how it will become impactful if there's a vertical specific use case associated with it.
Yeah. Think about the impact on patient care itself,
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And Stu, I'm gonna ask you guys, keep it short indeed, because this was kind of a digression from our prepared questions. So quick and
Yeah.
impactful.
Well, look, for me, AI, historically, when we've talked about communications, it's been passive. It's been after the event. So we record calls, we can listen to them, you could score them. It's passive. It's historical. AI's in the moment. It's actionable. So we can summarize calls. You can do intelligence routing. It can trigger workflows and take actions. So communication has become actionable. And therefore, that's why AI is super important to verticalization, because it makes communications an actionable event. Therefore, it's really easy to link it to outcomes. And that's what businesses increasingly need to see as they're getting squeezed from all different sides, but for all different reasons. So having actionable, measurable outcomes, that's what AI is driving.
Yeah, and outcomes can be, desired outcomes can be horizontal in nature. Everybody wants to grow revenues, reduce costs, etc. But they're also very vertical specific. So,
Yeah,
Malachi.
I'll be very brief, but principals at auto dealers know exactly how much a missed phone call costs. And everyone who owns a small business, medium business, whatever, they know what that costs. Our AI receptionist and scheduling allows the principal to have no more missed calls. So you could call a dealership, you can schedule, you can come in, you can reschedule, you can choose your channel. And fixing that and answering that question for a principal is a superpower of what AI solves.
I see. Okay. Now you actually gave us some examples as you were talking about AI, about workflows where transformation is needed, where we can provide some vertical specific solutions to drive business outcomes. But I still want you to perhaps highlight a few workflows that you feel are ripe for digital transformation in just a couple of selected industries or one industry, just workflows that you have identified as perhaps the space where there are pain points and where you have solutions that can address these pain points. So this is what I mean by ripe for transformation. Basically, there's an issue and there's a solution for that issue.
Yeah. Maybe I'll go
Brandy?
first this time,
Yeah.
right? So I gave a couple of examples earlier with AI generated clinical notes, and I think there's a huge opportunity for AI to streamline the patient physician workflow. And I mentioned earlier that this helps to reduce documentation by up to 70%. But what does this translate in terms of quantifiable outcomes? Since you mentioned the outcomes specifically, and here's a great example. Pocket RN is a virtual nursing care provider, and using clinical notes, they have saved over $27,000 a month and over 33 hours a month by using AI generated notes versus manual note taking. They've also seen nursing satisfaction scores at around 92%. A lot of this has to do with this reduction in documentation burden. But also onboarding was faster, 50% improvement in onboarding, and all because, once again, they adopted AI into a clinical workflow. So in healthcare, I think you're going to see AI being more involved in not just the patient, physician, manual note taking, but also in other aspects of clinical workflow. So that's an example in healthcare.
Great example. Great example that could use some digital tools to optimize the workflow.
Yeah. With
Okay.
outcomes as well. So
Right, right. As we optimize, we basically see cost saving, satisfaction, and user experiences improving and so on. Stu, what workflows do you believe are currently kind of
I'm going
really
to stick. Yeah, I mean, I'll stick with the kind of the deskless worker. So a great example of verticalization for us is in retail. So if you think about your traditional bricks and mortar retail store, the big department stores, lots of the shop floor workers don't have access to, or there's shared terminals, but you kind of got to walk to them. You're not in front of them all the time. So going back to the modality, our X hoppers, which is verticalized for the deskless, we move that into headsets, and we're seeing, there's lots of different benefits to it, but the one I would call out is around the people, so enablement of staff. They're seeing a 50% decrease in the time it takes to train, because actually in their ear, like literally just a press of a button away, they have an AI assistant that can help them with specific questions that customers are asking on the shop floor. So we're breaking this cycle where you used to have to shadow someone that was experienced for a long time and effectively gain tacit knowledge, so passed down like from generation to generation of store employee. We're actually giving people access to knowledge management tools that's filtered by AI specifically around the questions that they're being asked. And so we're seeing the reduction in time taken to train people. We're also seeing that from a morale and, from a feel, felt, found from a staff point of view, they're feeling much more equipped to deal more quickly with people live and become productive, which is great. And then we're also seeing that leads into an uptick in sales retail, because people are having the questions answered there and then by the first person they're engaging with. We can also use it to do things like prompting upsells or bought with type scenarios. So there's lots and lots of different ways. But for me, I like bringing this back to people. I love the fact that we can empower people and train them and make them feel less isolated in their jobs, which has been a traditional challenge in this sort of deskless environment, particularly in retail.
Great
Yeah,
point. And we'll go back to frontline workers in our next round of conversation. So, Malachi, what do you add?
Yeah, just briefly, I think that Stuart really hit the nail on the head there. But during call AI, especially in healthcare and other industries, the employees that are interacting with patients, once it goes from the IVR, AI receptionist, whatever, to the human, component, some of those conversations can be incredibly difficult. Whether it's a conversation about insurance, does someone's chest hurt? Did someone get cut really bad? And the stress that those employees feel that During Call AI can help them with increases ENPS. Employees are very expensive to replace, to train, to onboard. And so these tools also really make an impact with the employees to empower those employees to handle those difficult conversations, give correct answers versus incorrect answers, properly route. And so the additive nature about how AI does help employees, especially in the front line, which we'll go into, I don't think we talk about nearly enough, because it is really important for the well-being of a lot of employees.
Good point. Safety, security, well-being, different aspects from the usual productivity, cost savings, outcomes that we focus on. Mike, what workflows would you want to talk about?
I have two examples, and what is life saving, and what is productivity saving, I'd say. The first one, we have a customer who is a mental health provider. So if you think about that workflow, every call that comes in has to be answered, but it could be a simple, I need to reschedule my appointment, or this could be a person in crisis that needs to talk to someone right away. This basically mixed together our AI solutions as a digital front door, and really created a voice portal, front end for their customers, or their patients specifically. And the AI will kind of detect if, okay, this is just a reschedule. I'll send you a link to, with an update on your new appointment, or no, this person needs to talk to someone now. And that happens now 24/7. It's not when somebody is there. Before rolling this out, they had separate, UCaaS and contact center solutions. They weren't connected. Missed calls were rampant. And the early stats that we've seen some, from them, is they've had a 60% increase in call intake of new patient, bringing in new patients to support, because the AI is assisting and taking off those easy to solve solutions, and while letting the staff focus on the important, the calls that matter. So, I think it does, when you referred to, some of the stuff we're doing is mission critical. I mean, this is, life-saving solutions that we're supporting. So
Absolutely.
the other one I'll quickly mention, and we can talk about it more when we talk about deskless or frontline, is hospitality. The cleaning staff, their workflow is, they finish cleaning a room, they walk up to the room phone and punch a code in to say that room's clean and ready to go. If they find a problem in the room, they have to call a supervisor and explain, okay, this table's broken, or what have you. By kind of moving them to a mobile first and changing the modalities, now they can take a picture on their device, send it to their send it to a group chat. The maintenance team knows exactly, going into that room, what's broken. It can, kind of expedite a repair. So, very different use cases and workflows that we can enable.
Yes, and I agree that when we talk about vertical workflows, some of those are, front door, customer facing, and some are more internal coordination and collaboration kind of use cases, or just kind of access to information use cases. I do want to focus for the next perhaps 5 minutes. So we have 5 minutes for the last examples that I would like you to share. But for the next 5 minutes, let's focus on what we call deskless workers. And you already kind of shared some examples of the pain points that we're solving there and some of the ways in which we're approaching this user base. Again, this is where we see the biggest differences across industries. Ultimately, accounting in healthcare is more or less similar to accounting in manufacturing or other verticals. Arguably, of course, but a nurse and a nurse's workflows are very, very different from the retail assistant's workflows and the room service workflows and the hospitality industry and so on. Or in an automotive dealership, we have a completely different environment and goals. So, what would you say are some of the tools that have been traditionally missing for these kind of employees? How's that changing? And how are we overcoming some of the barriers? And I'll point out a few, and you may or may not be prepared to address them, but we have connectivity issues in some of the environments. Could be the retail store floor or a manufacturing floor environment. We have tech tech expertise. What I've heard from a lot of retail organizations is that part part of the issue is employee resistance to adopting digital tools because I mean some of those individuals were not hired for their digital savviness. Um, and that's pretty much it. Let's talk about how we onboard train these people once we have identified the right tools as well. So, um, who would like to get started on this kind of frontliner conversation?
Shall I,
5 minutes
shall I go
for all of us.
first?
You have a minute.
Look, I think that we've said it a bit before, but let's say it again. The frontline workers, the deskless workers, equate for the largest percentage of workers that are out in the workforce today. But they're also typically the least digitized. I think what we need to do is think about that. Again, it's that modality, finding the way that works for them. So sometimes kind of the premise, I think we could kind of pick over a little bit if we had more than 5 minutes, but are they the least resistant to use technology, or have they never been in an environment where we can give them the device or the modality that works for the function, the role that they have? And I think if we can square that circle, then we can actually find that they fit into a more broader UCAS application. They're connected and they become much more productive. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, maybe just to follow up what Stuart just mentioned. I personally feel that the tools for frontline employees are actually there, but they're all fragmented, right? You need different devices or different apps for different tasks. And Michael gave an example earlier of the patient room, right? You may have one tool for real-time communication, such as a push-to-talk system. You might have a separate mobile phone for general phone calls. You might be using a handheld scanning device for inventory control in a retail environment, or you might need to log into a computer for a training session over video. And you might need specialized apps as well that integrate with your CRM or your ERP or your workforce management system or your corporate intranet, right? So for me, frontline success has a lot to do with tool consolidation. And as Stuart mentioned earlier, it helps with onboarding, engagement, as well as productivity.
Makes sense.
Exactly. I'll just say as well, I think, the tools that were rolled out, on the retail floor, on the shop floor, were operational, and they weren't necessarily, the communications folks weren't talking of that. Bringing them into the platform alongside the back office and what have you. Let's get rid of the walkie-talkies that they grab at the beginning of the shift and give them, an Android device with, our app on, or integrate, as Randy said, with the CRM. So we're living alongside the point of sale system, or the back office, or the application they're using all the time. And push to talk is a perfect example of that. You can now give have an auto dealer. You can have the salespeople install an app on their personal device and walk and while they're talking to a customer out on the lot, they could get a message from finance or whatever saying this, this person's here, or from the front desk saying, hey, your customer's here to pick up their car. Those enabling those workflows and making it part of the whole. I think we spent decades with fragmented systems. The walkie-talkies existed before Wi-Fi, in locations. So it's really kind of a truing up and looking at communications holistically across sites and across roles.
Great point. Great point. I think we can, Malachi, please go ahead and tell us how you see frontline workers.
Yeah, it'll be very brief. I think what's happening today in these small and medium-sized businesses, especially in the verticals that we focused on today, is that every employee is a frontline worker. It doesn't matter where you're sitting or what you're doing. And so if we think about the shift in culture and people wanting to change providers after one bad experience, people never going back to a restaurant after a bad experience, frontline workers are more important than ever. And so having tools and capabilities and AI that enables those frontline workers increases retention, which drives profit.
Great points. And now we save the best for last. Instead of the usual closing remarks or recommendations or final takeaways, I would love you to share an example of a successful communications modernization with a specific vertical scenario use case. Again, let's keep it brief. We have 5 minutes. We don't have any questions queued in the Q&A chat here, so I think we can really use the time to share those real life examples. So who's ready to share a...
I'll go first this time.
Yes.
It's funny. We actually call him Go-To Bob, and I won't say which dealership he manages, but he is a dealer manager, and he's one of our biggest advocates. And it's really interesting to just see. And we've alluded to all of this in a myriad or variety of ways throughout the conversation today. But what we've really been able to do is the example I've given already with the principal knowing exactly how much a missed call costs. When you are able to implement these tools and these solutions with these dealerships, and this is a higher end dealership where, you're not buying a new car every month, every quarter, every year. You're buying a car on average twice every 7 years. So what happens in between those 7-year massive purchases is critically important. And that's where service comes in. So if I'm a dealer and I'm charging more for an oil change than I am for, let's say, going to a small oil change shop or a used tire shop, I have to provide experience. And so customers don't want to repeat themselves. AI allows us to remove them having to repeat themselves. They expect an entire historical record. So by going into their CRMs, going into their tools, the dealer management software, and combining that, they know the entire history of the service. They know when it needs to be serviced, and so they can appropriately point them in the correct direction immediately. And the result is, we've all alluded to it, higher retention, more loyalty, better outcomes for the customer, which really serves both the dealer and the customer for an exceptional experience.
Great example in automotive dealerships. What other industry are we going to talk about? Randy?
Well, I gave several examples earlier of healthcare workflows and AI-generated clinical notes and the outcomes associated with that earlier. But I wanted to give another example kind of in retail of why it's important to focus on vertical specific use cases, right? So I recently spent time with one of our major account teams who just had won a fairly large phone deal. And of course, I wanted to replicate it across other retailers. But when I asked them what was the use case, the response was that it was for replacing their phones in headquarters, right? That's not a vertical specific use case, right? That happens to be a horizontal use case in a retail customer. right? And there's a huge difference between the two, because a true retail use case for phone would have been, and Stuart mentioned some of this earlier, and Michael as well, extending beyond that corporate office and using phone in the stores, in the warehouses, in the field, in other operational areas. And this is where you start to see benefits beyond just, as you mentioned, Elka, productivity improvements or travel savings. And you start to see benefits such as improved customer satisfaction, higher revenues, streamlined processes, enhanced engagement with employees, and a lot more. So that's just an example. I don't have the specifics, but I shared some of them earlier. But you need to focus
Okay.
on verticals. So
Absolutely. Okay. Stu, let's go with you, Mike. Apologies, but we're going to have you share your example. We're not going to wrap up before you do.
You stick with the deskless workers and retail. We've got a really great example, and from an RFP that we went through, but we've turned the lights on in an area in the business that's not really had that insight. So we've gone from, actually in the store, we couldn't really see the communications, what was happening day to day between staff, what questions were being asked, because it's verbal, right? So it's historically been human to human, but person to person. And we can now track and see in real time 100,000 conversations happening through headsets, through deskless workers that are using push to talk to ask questions amongst themselves, which then triggers a reduction of calls into the IT teams for technical support because they can solve them themselves. With APIs, we're seeing that we take things that have been isolated, so cubic capacity in stores, so working out how many boxes of widgets can you have on a shelf at one time, linking it to EPOS, the tills, and then working out that actually if we've got 50 on the shelf and we've just sold 30, there's only 20 left. So now we can push auto-magically some notifications to the relevant person to go and take things out the warehouse and put them back on the shelf to make it look nice and neat and keep that volume of high flow goods coming through. So it improves revenue, improves service. But for me, I always like to come back to the fact that it helps people talk. So it makes them feel supported. It helps them talk to their colleagues when they need a human intervention. It gives them knowledge management tools that they can lean on that are curated through AI to serve the right information. And when we
Good
talk about the
example.
frontline workers, when we talk about the frontline workers, typically they're the ones that are talking to the organization's customers or patient, whichever vertical we're in, they're talking to the end user of that service. And so the more empowered we make them, the better the experience, and the CSAT rises. It is that high tide that lifts all ships if we can make that bit of the puzzle work better.
Wonderful. Mike, what example do you have for us?
I'll go back to the mental health provider that we talked about answering every call and better conversations with the ones that need to but that's also had because they're able to actually do 60% greater intake of new patients. That's translating into 25% increase in revenue, and they're projecting over $1 million of additional revenue for the company this year. So it all of those things the better CSAT, because now the patient is trusting that provider and they know they're getting answers. That all trickles ultimately down into that additional revenue, and this provider was actually able to quantify that.
So many great examples, so many opportunities to provide value in verticals. We're definitely at that tipping point where we have the tools, we have the vision for delivering this kind of value. I want to thank my participants here. It was a great conversation. I feel like we need another hour, but I don't think our audience will have the patience for us to continue. We can definitely reconnect some other time, share our perspectives in blogs, and This webinar is going to be, it's being recorded. It will be available on demand, so you can share it with more people. That goes for both the panelists and the audience. And of course, the audience will be able to reach out to you and your organizations for additional insights and perhaps actual, engagement. So thank you very much. I really appreciated it.